Hey guys, this is Ed, Paul, and Anna of Current Brand Media, and we are here to tell you a little bit more about our sponsor.
Sportsball is a great subscription service geared towards minor league baseball fans. Each box features a different minor league team.
You get a box every 3 months with minor league baseball gear, including different styles of hats like Ed's favorite, the dad hat. The cost is less than $12 a month.
Proceeds from each box goes to More Than Baseball, the only nonprofit dedicated to the well-being of minor league baseball players.
We all know that Parents' Days are coming up this summer, so if you've got a mom or a dad or a grandma or a grandpa who are particularly difficult to buy for, but you know they're baseball fans, this is the answer, guys.
Meet your new favorite team at sportsballbox.com.
Is there anybody there?
We pushed very, 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 very hard for the Tampa Yankees at that time to do that. Just down the road from Ybor, Cuban population all around. Where their ballpark is the Hispanic Latino focused population of Tampa, and they had no interest in it. It still kind of crushes me. And Delmarva has one of the largest, I think it's chicken farm areas in the U.S.
Yep.
It worked out well that they could kind of who rules the roost type of thing. But
What's up, Deadhead crew? Ed here. And on this episode, I give you guys Ryan Foose of Fooser Sports. He is the creator of many Copa brands, okay? You know what? I'm going to read some of it for you, okay? Picantes, pescados, de rápidos, cervezas de Durham, okay? Cucuys, the flying chanclas. That's right, guys, the flying chanclas. He is this guy, okay? We talked about his process, 4-step process actually, on how he goes and designs, talks to the customer and all of that. So, guys, without even further ado, I give you the episode. All right. Well, I want to welcome you guys to yet another episode of the Dad Hat Chronicles. My name is Ed, and with me today, guys, I have a cool guest, man. I'm pretty excited. His name is Ryan Foose. You guys have seen a lot of his work on MLB, especially Copa brands. So, welcome, my friend. How are you today?
good. How about you, man?
Good. Just another day in paradise, dealing with a 3-year-old before I got on. Had to read her, some Star Wars stories because that's what she wants. So
Nice. Well, that's at least a win in your book.
Oh, it's a
Maybe
must.
worse.
Absolutely. It was a huge win. My wife, not so much, doesn't like it, but what are you going to do? I'll start very simple. How'd you become a fan of baseball, man?
I think it's just always that sport that had everything in it. I think that a hockey jersey is up there as kind of one of the cooler things, but then you realize a baseball hat is worn by everybody. It's a baseball hat, and it could be depicting a fashion brand, a hockey team, a basketball team. It doesn't really matter. And so I think there's something also, I've always been a history buff, and there's something about that sport that just lends itself to it, which you could say is a negative for how traditional it's become and remained. But I don't know. I just think that there's nothing better than going to a baseball park and having a beer and hanging out and seeing what happens and being able to stack records on records and see who's doing what. And it's a nice mix of really straightforward brands that will never change, like the Yankees and Red Sox. Then you have minor league baseball teams that are so kooky and out there. So from a design perspective, there's something out there for everybody. I mean, there's too many teams out there in the baseball world that if you say you don't like a single brand that's in the baseball world, then you're obviously crazy. But
Yeah, something's wrong with you because there's something for everybody out there. That's just how that goes. So what was your team growing up?
So born in Boston and but grew up in Wisconsin, and so I think there's something about the Brewers, and it was kind of like that happy-go-lucky time of the early or late 90s, early 2000s when the Brewers weren't very good at all. And so I remember plenty of times on school skip days jumping down to, at that point, County Stadium and getting a $5 ticket and just hanging out there. It was cheap, and by probably about the fifth inning, you're about 5 rows down on the third base line, and you're like, all right, this will do. So there's something about the Brewers that have always kind of been the sweet spot, and probably the team I've closely followed.
So, okay. So, there's something about, and I love their brand new logo that they've been using. the
Mhm.
glove. I think it's one of those iconic that you know exactly what team that is. As soon as you see it,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, that's the Brewers right there.
Yeah, for
And it,
sure.
it's like you said, like the Yankees and Boston. You know who those teams are.
Hmm.
Then you go and see the Brewers. Unlike my team right now, who has a horrible logo, but I agree with you. That's a great logo, and like you said, $5 ticket. You can't blame. You can't
No,
beat
for
that at
sure.
all.
For sure.
Um, so let me ask you, so you go to school, you come to school down here in North Carolina, NC State,
Mhm.
correct?
Correct. Yep.
What attracted you to come down, from all the way up there to just like, I'm going to go to North Carolina? Was it the weather? Because that's what got me here.
A little bit, yeah. So I did undergrad at University of Wisconsin Stout, which is just about an hour east of the Twin Cities,
Mhm.
and then picked grad school at NC State just because at some point I like to teach. I think that's my ultimate goal in the far, far future. And so their program was awesome. But then to go to a Division I school in the ACC and kind of for a few years ride that kind of big school wave, I think was really important. But I love North Carolina. I mean, we're down in Tampa right now, and I think the only state that we would ever move to is North Carolina. Especially with Raleigh area, you're not too far from the beach, and you're not too far from the mountains. So I just love it, and the beer and barbecue and everything in between. It was just a perfect spot to kind of go to. And yeah, and NC State, they break my heart every year, multiple times in different sports. But I do love that school and everything that comes with it.
Yeah, it's an awesome place. You're right. Like, and this is one of those things that attracted my wife and I when we were looking into moving to North Carolina, because it was going to be either like, somewhere in Charlotte area or up here in Raleigh, because I have family here. And we ended up here just because, like you said, you're not too far from the beach, you're not too far from the mountains, and it's perfect weather most of the time. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was funny, especially you coming from at least a little bit further north. The 1 inch of snow ends a day or a week in terms of having them to clear it. And it's just like, oh man. So
Right.
it's something that would be interesting if I'm sure that baseball world is a little iffy because there's been some cold 40 some degree days all the way in May. So
It's funny because you say that it's like, it's like, oh, 15 degrees, and like 15 inches of snow. All right, we still got to go to work in Ohio.
yeah.
And then, here an inch of dusting, it's like everything is shut down, which don't get me wrong, I love it, even though now I work from home. So um so you're in North Carolina. You met some people, some cool people, and then you guys decided to start a movement. How, why, and how that come about?
Yeah, and I appreciate you having Lou on an earlier episode, and
Yeah.
it honestly was just it was just kind of a thought of thinking about the community, and I'm sure this goes for plenty of cities across the country.
Mhm.
That there's a city in particular that has a lot of things going for it, but the people that live there kind of have this "woe is me" attitude of, well, why don't we have better things, and why are we? And it's just like there's a reason why thousands upon thousands of people are moving to Raleigh. And there's a
Yep.
reason why, more and more Fortune 500 companies are looking at the Triangle. And so a long story short, it was, hey, we like talking about baseball. We think that Raleigh has a lot of things going for it. And what better way to kind of be a conduit of information than to tie it back to sports? Because people don't like talking about taxes. People don't like talking about transportation. They don't like talking about housing, but all of a sudden when you start talking about, well, stadium tax and how would you connect the triangle and how it becomes a lot more easily digestible conversation to have. And so we decided we're just going to brand the heck out of it and tie in history and try to get local artists and vendors and restaurateurs and everything involved. And with the full goal being, if we never, ever get a team in MLB Raleigh, so be it. But we want to make as many connections as possible. We want to do something for the community that hadn't been done before, which is to have these fun events and to donate time and money and to kind of better our city. So it was a unique avenue of thinking about it. And I think, yeah, within a month we had already been in Forbes and had articles written us in CBS Sports, just because we were a group that never called themselves an ownership group, but just thought about community first. So it's kind of been a fun side project to be a part of.
And you say something interesting and this is why I really like what you guys were doing, was that you guys were community first, and then baseball was the byproduct of what was happening with that movement, which I love a lot. I think is and someone who was here and then now it's this is home for me.
Mhm.
I really appreciated you guys saying that, especially Lou, when I had that conversation with him about that. I was like, yeah, it's all about community, and we invested the time and money, and then and all of that, all the sales went back into the
Mhm.
community, like the hat that I'm wearing right now, the Rally Grays,
Yeah.
which was awesome, which I believe was a design by you, right?
Yes, it was. It was. Yeah. It's three of us in core have started it, and then yeah, Will has done a great job on the stadium renderings and that kind of side of thing. Lou is our glue that knows everybody in the community, and then myself has really been a lot of the branding side of thing. Of when in doubt, if you make things look good, you get your name out there a heck of a lot faster. So
Got that right. So let's talk about that, because that's something that when I saw your designs and everything, it's like, 'cause this is where I really got to know about your company, your brand, is these logos. And I was like, when I was putting two and two together, I was like, oh my god, this guy's putting out some of the most awesome logos out there for Copa brand. And then I've come to find out that you were senior manager of brand development for minor league baseball.
Mhm.
So how did you get involved with, first of all, with that, and then second, the Copa brand, how that come about?
So I was working at IBM at the time,
Mhm.
and it was one of those that I Fooser Sports is kind of my freelance kind of
Mhm.
side branding studio, and it was always there, and it was always a steady stream of clients, but at no point was it really a serious thing for me. I never thought about going full time freelance. There was always having to be a day job, and this would be the night hobby type of thing. And so one day I decided to create this like company called Tall Tale Legends, and it was just enough historical references in these designs and stories that it could seem real, but they were
Mhm.
all fake.
Mhm.
And so one of the teams I ended up doing was there's a Cuban neighborhood here in Tampa, Ybor City, and for every other building is a cigar roller, and every corner has dozens of roosters on it.
Correct.
So created this logo of a rooster smoking a cigar, which sounds funny, and it hit a stride somehow, and I
It's
ended up
awesome.
yeah, ended up selling it to a vice president of minor league baseball. Like the same week, he was pushing to bring in an internal brand development role, because prior to that, minor league baseball, everybody knows at that time was 160 teams, 100 years old, and everything was outsourced. And
Mhm.
so whether it was working with partners, your insurance partner and your this and this, all the presentations were standard. There was no real true community effort or fan effort at that point, because everything had to be outsourced. So they were thinking about how they were doing that. And so released the hat, and within 3 weeks I was having interviews of, hey, let's start this brand development at minor league baseball. Let's start pushing the envelope a little bit. The first project of minor league baseball was it's fun to be a fan, and pushing and amplifying why minor league baseball is minor league baseball.
Mhm.
And then the second project, which ended up being the biggest of my tenure there, was Copa. And there is nothing that Latinos love more than sports. And for a sizable amount, when everybody thinks it's soccer, 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 it's like, no, there's also quite a love affair with baseball. And we were
Correct.
finding out that when you look at demographics around the LA area, any of those teams or New York teams or anything like that, the people coming through the turnstiles weren't representative of the love for the sport. And so myself and Vincent Predafrejo, who was helping me out at the time as our designer, we just started knocking out brands because we wanted the barrier to entry to be so low that teams wouldn't think twice about it. And it sounds weird to say that. By all means, did the leagues and the teams buy into it? 100%. But I think when it was first brought up of, hey, we're going to rebrand and we're going to change your food and the concourse experience of fans for for this Latino movement, I think a lot of them were worried. Like, what does this mean? Are we now changing gears too far and everything like that? And so we did all the branding in-house to kind of help them get over it, the hump of seeing what was possible. And I think we couldn't have gotten a better reaction from the crew in Las Vegas. Albuquerque absolutely crushed it. San Antonio did their thing. There was a lot of people that moved the needle far, far further than we ever thought was possible. And so I was in the beginning stages of Pride event, and now their new 9 initiative for the Black community. But overall, I think minor league baseball gets a little bit of a bad rap as this younger brother that's just kind of this pickup league of sorts at some of these low levels. But you realize that league as a whole is one of the most innovative, forward-thinking leagues in the entire world. And you see that just by the Pride program being in their like 4th or 5th year, and Major League Baseball now just doing it with 2 teams in the Giants and Dodgers. It's like, man, the minor league baseball was doing that a long, long time ago. So I was really, really proud of everything that we did during that time.
And it's funny because now you start seeing also MLB, coming with their City Connects and all that. Right? Yeah. I was like, hold on a second, minor league baseball. And I've been saying this for a long time. It's like, they're ahead of the game when it comes to a lot of, like you said, very innovative things, Copa brand, 9, Pride, all of that. And in Major League, it's like, slow to really react to what's going on. Like you said, go to New York, and this is a lot of, my own people as well, Puerto Ricans, that Yankee logo, right? That New York Yankees, that's like everybody wears that hat. I mean, there's a rapper called Daddy Yankee, for God's sakes, right? So, and I think it's a great way to identify. And these Copa brands, like, I mean, I'll be honest, like, I think I own about 90% of the brands that you've done. The flying chanclas, everybody can identify as a Hispanic. It was like, one of your parents or, grandparents threw a flying chancla at you. That's just how that happened.
Yeah. And I think it was a really good program too, because it opened up a lot of people's eyes to the amount of culture within Latino culture. And we were working with, at that time, they were in Pawtucket, the Red Sox and or Paw Sox. And we were, their original thought was they wanted to do this green and red logo. And then we started looking into the demographics, and that neighborhood and region is heavily Puerto Rican and Dominican. So if you would have thrown out a green and red, it would have been seen as kind of half-assed. You're just seeing it as, oh, Latino must mean Mexican, so there we are. And so I think there was a lot of good done, where now we start thinking about all those 26 or so different Spanish speaking countries all have their own, thought process and culture and everything like that. So I think it helped a lot of teams think even more in depth than normal. And it was definitely a fine line. And there's probably some Copa brands that just didn't work because it pushed it a little too far. But I think that, at the end of the day, branding is all about how you connect with people. And so there was a lot of these stories, and I've always been thanked by certain people when I work on a branding project, but I've never been as emotionally, gotten some really emotional responses from some of those that their grandfather was a mariachi, and so they saw that and they were lost their mind, or, hey, thank you. It was more resounding than anything I'd ever worked on before.
Yeah, and we identify like the bright colors, that's how we are, and I think, like you said, like, the Coquis de Florida, right? Like, I mean, that's like, I have a tattoo of a coquille on me, right? Like, I mean, we identify with these things. And when we start seeing that, right, like, we want to buy everything, the shirts, the hoodie, the jersey, the hat, everything. You want to buy that because you identify with that brand, especially the one I'm looking at, dearly departed Coquis de Florida, right?
Yeah.
RIP. But that had the flag, you had the star in the middle and all that. So I'm like, man, like, whoever designed it, I now know it was you, but like, you got it, right? Like, you understood what the message was, Cucuys, right? Like, I mean, come on. Like, I mean, those things are just like, one, they're fun, and 2, people identify with those. And then that's amazing. Let me ask you, how was your usual process when you're designing something? Like, how do you go into doing your process? Because everybody has their own way of doing it. How do you look at that?
It kind of gets broken down to like 4 stages. The first is just having long conversations with the client. So
Mhm.
whether it's a team, the owner, whatever the case may be, to just be like, what do you want this to be? Do you want this to be aggressive? Is this more playful? And I really like to find out how they hope to expand the brand. There's some brands I've done that I absolutely loved. The team's made shirts and hats and that's it. And it's kind of been disappointing of like, it feels like it could have been a lot more. And there's some teams that I've worked on that I sent them the style guide. And the next thing I know, they're doing custom this and this, and look at what we're doing for this. And they really think beyond what this logo is into the full true brand. And so the first is just to find out all the information from them. And the second is just hardcore research and kind of development, because I mean, there's some really tough times where
Mhm.
you have a client that's like, we're going to be the Eagles, and you're thinking about the 3 million Eagles that came out that year for sports branding. And
Look, can we be a little
yeah,
bit more original,
yeah,
please?
yeah. And so it's trying to figure out like, well, how do we make it specific to your city, or is it a color scheme, or is it maybe a hint of an eagle but not truly an eagle, and all that kind of stuff. And so pretty much a little bit of sketching, but then also just trying to make sure we aren't stepping on anybody's toes and not getting into a legal type of situation. And then it's just a huge concept overhaul of, I'm still a pencil and paper kind of guy. Like, even though we have a big old Wacom that kind of the computer screens you can draw on here in the studio, like it's still cardstock and pencil for just about everything I do in the pre-stage. And then hopefully there's a 3/4 angle, and there's this kind of secondary mark, and we kind of on paper have it all set in stone, and then we just vector it out, making sure colors are working well, and how it would look on different backdrops and everything like that. So yeah, it's pretty much find out what the client wants, do a little research to make sure you can do something that's truly unique, and then sketching and vectoring it out, and which is really the fun part, because you can see it come to life. And that first time you kind of send a client their first vector
Mhm.
or official logo, I mean, they lose their minds half the time, and that's really fun part to be a part of.
I don't know what it is, and there's this whole subculture of people just like they look at logos, and I'm one of them, right? I mean, if you look at behind me, I got a bunch of hats with a bunch of different logos, right? Like I'm like,
Yeah.
you just get excited, right? You got Logo November, right? November, that's that
Mhm.
one time of year where just like so many releases, and you're like, all right, come on, who's rebranding, who's not, who's coming out with new stuff, and it's just that's exciting. And then
Yeah.
when you say it's like that, and I'm sure it feels good as an artist that people get so excited because you put that time into the designing something for someone.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think I mean, it's tough though. I mean, there's definitely those that you see release and you're just kind of watching. Social media can be very uplifting, and it can also destroy
Mm,
you to some extent. So it's a weird situation to be in when you go and you see a team launch, and you just hope that it does well and that people connect with it. And you're always going to have the negative people that just don't like something, and it is what it is. And I don't, it doesn't bother me, because at the end of the day, the client's opinion matters most, because they're the owners of the team, they're the ones dealing with it on a daily basis. So if they're in love with it, that's what matters. And there's definitely been some parts of a brand that you do that you're like, man, that could have been better, but it's what they ended up wanting. So it's a give and take the entire way. And you just hope that when somebody releases it, you've made a positive step forward if it's a rebrand, or you make just a huge splash if it's a new team altogether.
yeah. um which one, and obviously you're gonna everybody asks, all right, which one was your favorite? um have you had any like that was just like you wished that you would have done a little bit different? Like, is there a specific logo or brand that you're like, yeah, I wish I would have just tweaked it just a little bit different than the what it came out with?
Yeah, Canapolis, the first year was just like a Roadrunner head.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was one of those, we did it. And the original color scheme was like a maroon and baby blue or something like that. And so the GM at the time was pushing how he wanted, bright orange and blue, orange and blue. Let's do this. I mean, Petty Racing and all those guys. And then it ended up getting to the point where uh, subconsciously it got just a little too close to the sun with El Paso,
Yeah.
UT El Paso. I think it's or San Antonio, one of the two. Um, and yeah, and so we got a nice little cease and desist letter, and it was a little weird because it was we cleared all the legal side of things on our end. And so, yeah, I think looking back, I go, we should have probably thought about it and said, hey, if we do this design, the colors for sure can't be orange and blue. We need to separate it out a little bit more and stuff like that. And we had one concept. I think the original concept for them was actually lowriders because
Nice.
of the racing kind of culture and thinking about what's the car version that would be fitting of that. And then we had gotten notice. I think once we had designed it all kind of out and gotten to a good place, we had heard that I think Fresno decided that they were going to be in it, and they submitted everything before Kannapolis, and that's why we switched gears. So the new Rapidos, it definitely is really, really clean. But yeah, I think back at that first one, that the lowrider brand was really fun and probably something I can post at some point. I think the statute of limitations is up on that, but yeah, I look back at that one going, it could have been a really, really fun brand. It just was a little too close to what was going on in Texas.
Yeah, and that's this one is actually pretty cool. I also own that hat somewhere back there in there. So like I literally I was counting earlier, and I'm like, oh my God, I got a lot of his logos that you designed, Durham Bulls, right? The Cervezas. That's like one of the ones that, like, my friend Anna, right? She's a huge Durham Bulls fan as well. And she was like, I have a green hat. I use it for, Copa, and then I use it for, when it's St. Patrick's Day, because it really works out. So yeah, but you're right. Like, I mean, a lot of these, man, you guys, Gallos de Delmarva, man.
Yeah, and so that logo, Delmarva, was very, very close to the Ybor City smoking cigar smoking rooster one that got me the minor league baseball job. And so a little backstory on that, we pushed very, 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 very hard for the Tampa Yankees at that time to do that. Just down the road from Ybor, Cuban population all around where their ballpark is the Hispanic Latino focused population of Tampa, and they had no interest in it. It still kind of crushes me. And Delmarva has one of the largest, I think it's chicken farm areas in the U.S.
Yep.
So it worked out well that they could kind of who rules the roost type of thing. But yeah, that one kind of hurt. That was originally sold or pushed to Tampa Yankees, and they just didn't bite, which would have been a really, really fun brand.
It's funny you say that, because like there's some brands that just refuse to just accept what's around them, like their population and all that, and it's like you're missing the point, because like, listen, this is merchandise, right? This is money going right into your team right there. They are buying, and then they're buying them by the truckloads. You got to, like you said, you got a big, huge, Hispanic community there. They love, they're fighting, when it comes to the Roosters and all that. So you're right. I think that's a missed opportunity there. That's sad.
Yeah, and I think the Florida State League was in a tough situation because I think only the Florida Fire Frogs were the only ones that joined for the first 5 years, and I think that they're just so worried about spring training that minor league season somehow kind of finds its way as a secondary aspect, because Clearwater and it's a team that could do some awesome things, and for some reason hasn't. And it's just at some point I'd like to see them kind of push the envelope a little bit more. Everybody in that Florida State League, now that it's going to be back in the Florida State League naming, but I think that they're all in a tough position of just trying to make the farm owners happy, that they're just trying not to ruffle things up too much.
Let me ask you, because now this has evolved into not just the teams that you work with, but now it's evolved into something that's just, a lot of other teams are using. Do you wish you still did more of those, or are teams still, contacting you? Hey, do you want to do more work, with the Copa brand? Is that something that you're still doing?
Yeah. So the Somerset Patriots just did their Zorros for this year, and have had conversations with folks for future years. It's just going back to this discussion on hats. New Era is just so incredibly busy that you're having teams that are having to submit in March to hope that they get it the following June type of thing. It's just the timelines are so incredibly tough. And I think it's hurting a lot of teams because to put the money up front to buy stuff and then hope that it shows up is a tough position to be in. And so I think that, yeah, this year there's probably a downtick in specialty hats and all that. I would expect next year you're gonna get your hands full and your wallets are gonna be hurting because there's
My wall is
quite a
already
stuff over.
hurting. Yeah. It's funny you say that because that's something, and I've had conversations with other people saying that, yeah, like, I mean, not just New Era, but 47 brand, and a lot of these other big companies are just, they're so backed up. And then there's, I'm like, all right, guys, when are you guys getting more dad hats? When are you guys getting more dad hats? And they're like, we don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know when they're gonna get it. It's like it takes a long time for approval, and maybe we'll get them. Maybe we'll get them at middle of the year. Maybe we'll get them next year. We don't know. I'm like, oh my Lord, that's sad.
Yeah, and it's such a hot market right now that, whether you're Hat Club or Lids or anything like that, I mean, they're producing stuff at a record speed or record pace in terms of the amount of drops that they're doing, and it sells out in seconds because there's just such a hard, fast, and dedicated group of hat collectors that the demand just completely outweighs the supply.
It does. Yeah. I mean, but that's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have. So that just gives opportunity to other companies to really, come up and say, hey, we'll get them for you guys. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Why not? So, one more question before we go into our famous, not so famous questions here. You did a little bit of design for, and then going back to the whole MLB rally, you did one logo yourself when they did, everybody, the community and everything came, and you did that one logo. What was your whole reasoning behind choosing that specific logo that you did?
Yeah, so at MLB Raleigh, we did an event where we asked, I think it was 12 designers from the triangle to just come up with anything. And by no means were we serious because we were worried if we made it truly, hey, this is what MLB would look like in Raleigh, it would just be a lot of R's and C's, and it'd be fairly traditional and uninspiring. And so some people did it, and they did kind of a C mark, and that was it. But I think I don't remember what the official name was that I did, Pine Barrens or something like that. But it was a baseball bat axe and kind of olive green tones, and it was just a playoff of being in North Carolina, which is especially this year in a lot of states, the tree pollen just absolutely murdering everybody's sinuses. And so yeah, that was my concept, was just like this thought of, this battle axe, which kind of tied into baseball, but just talking about the military history, because Fayetteville is so close. And but yeah, it was a fun event. I mean, anytime that you can hang out at a brewery with creative folks and have 500 people show up to talk baseball, it's something that we'd like to bring back. And then this COVID thing just keeps chugging along. So
yeah, I know, right?
In the near future, we'll pack a place again and have some fun with it.
You let me know and I'll be there. Yeah, you did the North State Pine Brigade. That's a cool one.
Brigade,
yeah, that was one of my favorites that you guys put out there. Oak City Owls, another one that you guys did. Pretty cool stuff. But yeah, and then hopefully in the future you guys will come up with some more events, and then I'll make sure to be there, because you guys are doing some cool stuff out there, man. All right, my friend, are you ready?
I think so.
All right, first question. You go to a ballpark. What is your drink or food of choice?
95% of the time it's beer and hot dogs, hot dog with mustard and onions. I mean, the faster I can get a beer in hand, and it usually is just the hot dogs are the cheapest thing. So that's the go-to.
That is a great answer, my friend. Great answer. Okay. What animal is the biggest party animal, do you think?
The biggest party animal. Oh, I'll say a raccoon, because it never sleeps and it's always ready to go at night. There's been actual parties that have been broken up by raccoons.
You're right. That's a good answer. What was your favorite TV show growing up?
Ooh, favorite TV show. I believe every single time I had to put it down for like a sports questionnaire type of thing, it was always Sports Center. Like that was just the thing I watched in the morning, and then the thing I watched when I came home from school. So I know that's not quite the correct line of thought, but
And that's always on in my house.
Always on.
It's always on in my house, so I get that one. What will be your weapon of choice in a zombie apocalypse?
Oh, I'll take anything. I won't. Beggars can't be choosers at that point.
Right at this point, like anything.
some kind of gun, probably whatever works. But yeah,
I like it. Okay, you're right. Beggars can't be choosers at that point. What is your spirit animal?
Ooh, not only because it kind of rhymes with the name, but it's always kind of been a moose. I think if you've ever seen a moose in person, they're 3 times larger than you can even imagine. They're kind of this mystical creature hanging out in the water and in the forest. So I'll say that.
I like that one. That's a cool one. All right. What Disney princess would make the best spy?
I'll go Ariel, because I mean, you're talking about land and by sea. So I'll go with Ariel.
I like it. Okay. All right. If you could be a fictional character, who would it be?
Fictional character. Ooh. Oh man, that's tough. We're always obsessed with the Batman movies, so I'd probably say that. Just because, yeah, Bruce Wayne's got a lot of cool tools, and
a lot of toys.
A lot of toys. So I'd go with that.
I like Batman. It. What is the most boring sport in your opinion?
Oh man, there's something about golf on like a Saturday or Sunday to fall asleep to, which is perfect. But
to give you a good nap.
Yeah, but I keep seeing more and more cornhole on TV. I love cornhole.
But that's a party thing, though.
Yeah, I love playing it, but I can't believe it's on ESPN at this steady rate. So I'm going to say
right. But like, is ESPN running out of things to show on TV? So I'm with you there. If you could be in any movie, what movie would it be?
Oh man, I think it would be fun to say that you were in like one of the classics, like the Bull Durham type of thing, or if you're the Bat Boy in The Natural or something like that. So you could always say that was the movie you were in. I think that would be something really fun.
You're right. That's a good one. Ryan, thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate that. Where can people find you on social media?
I think all my handles are at Fooser Sports, then foosersports.com. And yeah, just gonna hopefully pick up the pace on some designs that are coming out soon. So
I'm very excited. I cannot wait to see what you got cooking up, my friend. Seriously, thank you so much. And then make sure you guys are following him.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank you guys for listening to this episode. Now, make sure you guys are following Ryan. Instagram, Twitter, all of that. He's there. It's on the show notes, so make sure you guys go there. Also, before I go, want to let you guys know, thank you, first of all, for listening to this episode. It does mean a lot that you guys are, every week, you guys are tuning in for another episode. If you don't mind, though, make sure you hit that 5 stars and then also hit the subscribe button. And if you feel so inclined, tell one more person about this, okay? Until then, keep on grinding and always support the minor leagues. See ya.
This podcast is part of the Curved Brim Media Network. Here are some of the other members of Curved Brim Media.
Hi, this is Ed Rivera of the Dad Hat Chronicles. Join me as I interview people just like you and players, coaches, GMs on the path that led you to become a fan of the sport.
I'm Paul Caputo, and on the Baseball by Design podcast, I talk to minor league baseball teams, designers, and other super interesting people about what these minor league baseball logos mean, and I talk a little bit about ice cream helmets.
What's up, Bucketheads? I'm Anna DiTommaso, and each week on the Baseball Bucket List podcast, I speak with a different fan about their favorite baseball memories, what the game means to them, and what's left to check off on their baseball bucket list.
Hey guys, this is Patrick Larson from the Minor League Baseball Hat History Series, and in every episode I go through the history of minor league teams through my personal collection of hats. You can find me on Twitter at @PatLarson1. I hope you guys enjoy.
This is Patrick
and Corey
of BaseballMapper.com, and we have made an interactive map to help highlight all baseball teams from the majors down to collegiate summer leagues.
We want to bring you closer to baseball, so get on the site and find a team near you today.
Learn more about Curve Brim Media at curvebrandmedia.com.